I'm David, and I'm the owner of the museum that we're going to be opening at the beginning of July. I just want to show you a couple of the bikes that are of particular interest. If we start with this one, by the way, before I carry on, they're all just being put in here. This is not obviously the layout, and they're very dusty. So this is not the, by all means, don't think this is the finished product or anything. Okay, if we start with this one, this is a CB450D, the very first CB Honda 450s back in the 1960s. The very first model was the CB450 Black Bomber 4-speed. Right at the end of their production, Honda knew that the 5-speed version was coming out, and they had a lot of unsold 4-speed ones at dealers and at all the various depots, American Honda, Honda Europe, etc. So Honda brought out what they call the D-kit, which is the high pipe. It was the high pipe set. It's the only Honda that has a high pipe on each side of the bike, snazzier tank, bars, and different mudguards, etc. So this is like a special edition, but what they did is actually kickstart the whole CL version, because these did prove to be popular. This is a CB750 Sandcast, and what makes this bike special is the fact that it's VIN number 750, which was a pretty hard find. It's been very sympathetically restored, not by us, but the finish is great. Certain features on here are noteworthy to those in the know. If you look at the holder or the oil filter container, it has no fins on it. That indicates it's early. We've got the sharp edge on the front mudguard. That's also an indication it's a very, very early version of the CB750. And if we were to open the tank, you would see crinkles in the bottom of the tank, which is another indication of a very early edition. So we have, if you have a look here, that's VIN number 750, you can see, and also on the engine number, it's not, they're never matching, but you can see that it's also a very early series. It's in the 800 or so. Is the very first model of the Fireblade CBR 900 RRN. It's a UK one that we did in fact buy from a guy who had it in his garage, fairly neglected, and much of the work, a lot of the work you see was undertaken in the UK or by us. The GL1000. Now, this again is a special edition. The GL1000 Executive was a sort of club version for want of a better expression, for the GL1000s to try and perk up their sales a little bit. All what you see here, the differences, the fairing and the wheels and a lot of the extra parts added were in fact added in the UK, not in Japan. It was a limited edition, about 50, and you see, look on the side panel, they're all numbered, and this is in fact 001. It came with a certificate to the certificate showing from Honda, showing that this is a limited series, and this is in fact number 1. A Honda Dream E. This particular bike was made in about 1952, and mostly for the domestic market, and it's got some interesting aftermarket period piece fitted manual trafficators. We have a CE71, and these, only around 390 were ever produced from about 1959 to 1961, and these are, a lot of these allegedly, apparently, were recalled because they were found, or Honda decided that they were a bit dated with the new models coming out, specifically the CB72 and 77. The rather dated look of this, they didn't particularly want them on the market, so out of the 390 that produced, apparently a lot of them were recalled. So to find these are incredibly rare. We have a CB50J, not a particularly desirable bike because this came straight after the SS50 for replacement as a sports moped. Now the problem with these is they were made after 1978, the cut-off period where mopeds could have a virtually unlimited speed, so not a particularly desirable model and didn't sell very well because they only do about 30 miles an hour. And they were fairly expensive at the time, so not many, I think there were only about 1 year model, not many produced, so to find one in this condition is quite rare. This was actually imported back from Jersey. This one, even though it was registered in the UK, it was exported to Jersey and then came back again. But it's nice to have this in this condition. This has not been restored. This is as it is, having done nearly 9,000 miles. Here we have a Honda CB450 4-speed black bomber around 1966. This came from the Bob Logue collection in Pennsylvania. I believe it's probably been restored. It's not original, but it is absolutely mint condition. It has 29 miles on the clock, and it is, as I say, in 100% perfect condition. I think the paint on the mudguards is just too good for it to be original. And unfortunately it's a bit covered in dust, but it is a beautiful condition bike. Here we have a CD175, and it is frame number 122, so probably produced the first day of production of the CD175. That's the version with the upright engine from about 1970, as opposed to the early CD175 with the forward sloping engine. It is in absolutely immaculate condition. This has definitely not been restored. This came from also the Bob Logue collection. If you note the mileage, 489 miles. Bob Logue himself told me the story of this bike. Someone bought it, hardly used it, and then brought it back to the shop for a trade-in, and he was the only owner, having only done 489 miles. This is one of the first bikes that Bob Logue kept for the collection, but it is 100% original CD175, possibly one of the earliest versions of this edition of the CD175 there is. We've got a CD450 4-speed police bike. This was adapted from the 4-speed black bomber, and it has all the period correct features and items on it as the police bike. This also came from the Bob Logue Museum, but interestingly in the US only around a handful of these bikes existed, because the Honda as a police bike back then wasn't particularly sought after, as no doubt Harleys were the preferable.